What you guys know about this right here? Delicious. What's up everyone? I am Justin. This is Make Supply, and the topic of today's video is how to quickly and accurately make wet molds for your leather projects using a slightly non-traditional method. Up until recently, I haven't done a whole lot of wet molding in my leather working journey, but over the past couple weeks, I've been experimenting a lot and having a whole lot of fun doing it. And I ran into two major problems. Problem number one, well, I ran out of things to wet mold. And problem number two, I'm no good at woodworking, but I do have a computer and some design knowledge and a really expensive hunk of metal over here that is excellent at cutting things out of wood. I came up with a little system to take any solid shape vector design you can come up with on your computer and transform that into a wet mold for your leather crafting projects. Here is a wet mold in progress. This is what we will be focusing on making today. And here's the other design that we will be looking at. Now, just a heads up, this is part one of a two-part video series. In this video here today, we are going to be looking at designing the wet mold, cutting it out on the laser cutter, and assembling the pieces so you have a functional wet mold ready to use. In next week's video, which will be part two, we are going to complete this mold here and turn this into a nice little flap card holder. And we will also be turning this one into a oddly shaped valet tray. All right, let me go grab the laptop and we will get started with the design process. All right, so the software I use to do all of my design work is Adobe Illustrator. After I finish my design in Adobe Illustrator, I send it to another software called Lightburn, and that is what interfaces with my laser cutter here to set all of the file parameters for cutting, engraving, and all that good stuff. So let's jump into Illustrator. Now here's the creative part where you get to come up with the design for your wet mold. If you are just looking to do a standard round tray, you can use the ellipse tool and come up with your design. Here is a octagon with a 4-inch radius. And here is the base that we'll be working with today, which will be a rounded rectangle that is 3.5 inches wide times 3.25 inches tall and a quarter radius of 0.75. So this will be the wet mold that we are using to create the base of our card holder design. I was also looking for a cool valet tray design to come up with for this video, and since we have the power of the computer, I thought it'd be fun to do something that's a little bit out of the norm and might be a little bit more difficult if you were to do this by hand. And I found this weird shape here online just by searching for free organic shapes, and I traced this in Illustrator, and here was the end result. So to create our base plate, what you're going to do is copy and paste the original. Move this guy out of the way. And depending on the size of the source board that you have and the size of your laser cutter, we are going to make a square perimeter around this. So my original shape is 3.5 by 3.25, so I'm going to add about 1 inch on each side, so 5.5 by 5.25, and that will come up with the square here that we are going to use as the base. We are going to be attaching our wet mold here to this. This is the base plate. So I go ahead and align vertically and align horizontally so it's right in the middle. So when you're setting this up on your laser for cutting, you're only going to cut around the outside, and then this is going to be an etch line. You're just going to etch this line into the board. You're not going to cut that. Okay, so now we are going to make our top plate. The top plate is what is going to sit on top of the mold and on top of the leather, just like this, and it's going to sandwich this down and hold your leather in place, so when you clamp this and let it dry, it has a real nice connection. So to do our top plate, we are going to copy and paste the base plate, and you're going to go ahead and select the middle. That is the wet mold shape that's in the middle of your base plate. Now we need to make this a little bit larger than the shape of the mold so it can fit over top of the leather and the wet mold and make a nice secure clamp down. To do this, we're going to use a tool called the offset path. So you go to Object, Path, Offset Path. just like that. Oops. So I like to switch into millimeter when I do my offset path. And so you're gonna go ahead and choose an offset path. I'm going to be doing 4 millimeters for my card holder design and then 5 millimeters for the valet tray. This is a good time to experiment with the thickness of leather that you'll be using. If you don't get your top plate right on the first try, just cut another one. But I'm going to be using 4 millimeters. That gives a nice space around the mold. And you can see that there. So then you're going to go ahead and delete the inside shape. And now you have the core pieces of your card holder wet mold. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the valet tray. This process will apply to any shape you have. So I look up what the size is. It's basically 7.1 by 4. So I'm just going to do 9.1 by 6. Something like that. I'm gonna go ahead and align vertically, align horizontally, so it's nice straight in the middle there. And then you're gonna copy and paste the base plate. I'm gonna grab your interior mold shape, object, path, offset path. And like I said, this one I'm gonna be doing 5 millimeters. Delete the first shape. And now you have your base plate, your top plate, sorry. So depending on how thick of the board you're cutting, whether it be a 1/4 inch, an 1/8 of an inch, or even thicker, like a 1/2 inch or more if you have a more powerful laser cutter, you're gonna have to decide how many layers you need to reach the depth that you're looking for. I'm looking for 3/4 inch for my card holder design, so obviously I have to cut 3 of the shape and stack them together. For the valet tray, I wanted an inch depth, so I wanted 1 more layer. So I had to cut 4 of this shape, just like that. So when you set up your laser files, make sure that you cut the amount that you need. So that'd be 1, 2, 3. And this one, since it's gonna be 1 layer thicker, I need 4. So 4 pieces, 1 bottom plate cut around the outside, etched on the inside, and then 1 top plate cut around the outside and also cut around the inside. And here are your cutout pieces. Here are the 3 parts that will be the wet mold. They will be stacked like this. Here is the base plate with the engraving of where we're going to place this down. And here is the cutout piece, the top plate with the offset path. That way when we put everything together like this, then our leather will go on top and then our plate will come down on top like that. Okay, so the first step now is to glue these pieces together and make a nice connection. So I'm going to be using this Titebond Ultimate Wood Glue. All right, in the beginning here, I just like to put a little bit of top pressure to let that glue dry just a little bit before I clamp it down. Otherwise it slides around too much. Don't worry about the glue sticking out the sides. We're going to be sanding it anyway. All right, it's been about a minute. Now I'm gonna put the clamps on. All right, we gave this thing a good squeeze here, and we are gonna let it dry and then come back. All right, now it is time to sand. We have to get rid of all of the laser residue on the edges of this wood, because this stuff will come right off onto your leather. All I have here is a Dremel with a sanding bit and a piece of sandpaper here, and you just go to town. All right, fast forward there. I went outside and took the Dremel sanding bit to the edges. I don't want to get all this dust up into my camera lens. And I also went around the top edge here just to give it a slight bevel. And I might clean it up a little bit with my sandpaper here, just like that. So now we are ready to attach this to the base. Here is our base with our outline and our mold. So we let that dry for a little while, and now we have our completed bottom part of our wet mold. And while that's drying, it is a good time to go ahead and sand the inside edge of the top plate. All right, so let's look at both of our molds here. That is our completed mold for the card holder. And this is the one I did already. And this is the completed mold for the whale-shaped valet tray, I guess I'm gonna call it. So now it is time to cut some leather. So I actually don't know what the established science is between how much leather you're supposed to cut for a wet mold. If you know the answer to this, please leave it in the comment section below. I would love to know. But usually I just take my top plate as a guide, and I give it a little bit more than the edge. So that's like about a ½ inch around, something like that. And then I just cut that out. And now we are going to wet mold. We're going to use Pennsylvania's finest distilled water. Now it's time to mold. All right, and that, my friends, is how you can turn any vector design that you have on your computer or you found on the internet into a fully functional and absolutely precise wet molding jig for your leatherwork. In next week's video, we are going to turn this lowly rounded cube into a fully functional wet molded card holder, as well as experiment with turning this kidney bean shaped design into a double-sided lined and stitched valet tray. Please subscribe if you have not, and I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.